thinking, wow, Mark talks really, really fast. Can he slow down? Yes, kind of. And so Tom and Peter, in engineered clarity and internalization, and then breaking it down into the internalization model, like, and this is going to be so cool when you guys see this. Like, I can't wait to share it with you. Any thoughts that you have before we dive in and go deeper on this?
Well, the one thing I would say is, to me, there's actually three parts to the internalization process. I internalize a product, service thing, whatever it is that I'm internalizing. But then I have to believe it. And once I believe the internalization, whatever it is, then my behavior changes because of the internalization and the belief process. And when my behavior changes, then my outcome changes.
So one more time, Tom.
So I internalize whatever it is that we're talking about.
Okay.
And then I think about that, and if I truly believe in whatever it was that we just talked about and I internalize, if I truly believe it, then my behavior changes because it's caused me to take different paths, possibly. And once my behavior changes, then my outcome changes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 3 R's for that, which is recognize, rationalize, realize. That's my...
One more time, slower.
Recognize,
okay,
rationalize, realize. It's basically the same as what Tom just said in my book. You know, the realize is change.
Interesting. Okay. So you guys can stop me at any time. So for those that are listening, kind of button, strap on the seatbelt here, because here we go. So there's 4 levels of learning. There's unconscious incompetence. We lack knowledge and do not know it, or if we're a little more direct, we're stupid and we don't know it. Then there's conscious incompetence, and this is where we're stupid and we know it. We lack knowledge and know it. Kids, if you're listening to this, don't listen to Mr. Boersma. Don't say stupid, okay? Sorry, this is a family. I want you to be able to go ahead and share this with all your kids, and your grandkids. And so I won't use that anymore. I apologize. It's kid-friendly here. You want to pass this to everybody. So there's conscious incompetence. We lack knowledge, and we know it. Then there's conscious competence, where we have knowledge and know it. And then the 4th level is unconscious competence, where we have knowledge and do not know it. It's become a reflex to us. Now, unconscious competence, level 4, is the most effective way to be as an employee, as a business owner, as mom, a dad, a child, in student, in class, in school, everything, because you're so good at it. It's just reflex. You're just doing it. But it's not a good place to be if you're building a system, or if you're trying to teach somebody else something that you know, because you don't know what you know it. It's called the warm belly rub. It's the unconscious competence. Now, in life, this is what's interesting. In life, it often happens. Sorry, that ran over. So the conscious incompetence. So it's birth. So when a child. So I have grandchildren. And so with the grandchildren, it's like they're consciously incompetent. Like they can't run, they can't walk, so they struggle. They can't talk. And so my daughters are always saying, because they can't understand them, the 2-year-olds. So I have twin girls and then another 2-year-old granddaughter. So I have 3. They were here for a week. It was awesome. So they're always trying to talk, but you can't understand them. So they're consciously incompetent. And then what we do is we go to a conscious competence, and that's where a great student, it can happen at any age. That's where we're learning. And this is something that I love about Peter and Tom. Tom's the most recent past president of Century 21, largest real estate franchise in the world. and Peter, I'd mentioned that he's the past board member of BMW. So these are two really accomplished, very successful guys, but they're like kids where they're students. They're always learning. They're always curious about what it is. That's a great place to be. And so then we move into an unconscious competence, and this is teenagers, like, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And then it seems like it happens in the 20s. And then I've noticed some of my peers in 50s where they think they know everything. That's not going to work out so well. That's unconscious incompetence. We lack knowledge. We think we're smart, but we're really not all that smart. And then unconscious competence, where we're always developing new skills, always going through those things. So on internalization, there's surface memory, where we take notes. This is in class. We're taking notes. Then deep memory, things of meaning, deep meaning, life vision, eternity, pain. And so it's going deeper. So often people say they know something, they've internalized something, but they really haven't. So here we start to get into the fun part. So often when people think they are clear but are not clear, then what? Again, we don't say that word because this is family friendly. Just be quiet. That's the word. Be quiet and listen. Like, you're not so smart, any of us, in what we go through. So when we look at the internalization model, okay?
Can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
To the last thing you just said, when you have somebody that is talking, but they probably really don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I've always asked them, said, explain that to me, will you? And all of a sudden, they kind of start to realize, maybe I don't understand what it is I thought I understood.
That's good. I like that technique. So when we look at asking questions, if we ask the right question, so I wish I would have, I think my youngest one was 15 when I discovered this. Rather than telling my kids over the years, that's not a good way to think, it would have been far better parenting, and this goes with employees, peers, boss, anybody, rather than judging people for saying that's not a good way to think, to say, well, that's one way to think about it. It's much more effective where there's well, you can think that way. I don't think that's going to serve you so well. So it's helping people to come up with questions, and when they come up with the right question, it creates an awakening, and you can always tell when you awaken somebody because they're like, wow, that's a great question. And then listening, which connects back into our life vision. So my life vision, I was blessed to discover this when I was 8 years old, not as clear as it is now, but my life vision, why I was put on this planet, is to touch every single person in the world, one person at a time, make a huge difference in every aspect of their life in a really fun and exciting way. And yep, that's 7.4 billion people. My wife and I have been blessed with 7 kids. Each child has a continent, so we've broken this stuff down. I mean, I'm serious about this goal. Like, it's like, so what is your why? Like, what's your life vision? Like, why have you been put on this planet? So if your dad or mom gave you this, or maybe your grandparent gave you this, I'm telling you, they are so concerned about your life vision. And it's really simple to discover it. It took me over 30 years. I was given it as a gift at the age of 8, and it took over 30 years to figure out a system. Here's a bonus for today. Just take a blank sheet of paper, draw a circle around it on the blank sheet of paper, and then go ahead and list everything you're passionate about around the outside. In the center of all of our passions is our life vision. It's why we're put on this planet. It's our why. When we discover our why, it's awakening. Even things that are painful to us in life will awaken us. So right now, going through some really tough times in a couple areas of life. But I'm thankful for that, even though it's really struggling, it's disruptive, it's really painful. But I understand my life vision, why I was put on this planet, so I understand that to get to my life vision, there's going to be some things of pain, just like labor, like I was in for all 7 of the deliveries. And that's painful. Now, if my wife breathe through it, like, it's going to be painful. And that's life in dimensional jumps. if we breathe properly, meditation or breathing techniques or yoga, like that stuff like really works. Like if we breathe through stuff like life and realize life, there's adversity and we don't overreact, we don't hyperventilate. When we understand that, that leads to some really cool things where we see things, we see insights that we've never seen before, which then purifies our intentions. So a great white paper to read is WIFN, What's in It for Me? It's the concept of selfless selfishness. How do we be selfless in a selfish way, or how do we selfish in a selfish way? So how do we make sure that in our own selfishness we're really watching out for others, which then creates a thinking, not just, oh, that's nice. It's like, oh my gracious, like, wow. Like when Tom said, gave me the word internalization. They're not internalizing. I'm like, that's the answer. I could feel it, but I didn't know the model. So spent a month, over 70 hours of time saying, what is the model for internalization? And it's radical thinking that leads to leverage, additional capability. So even though I have far less time with my grandkids than I did with my children, I want to impact my grandkids like my grandfather impacted me, like Tom's grandfather impacted him. Peter, did your grandfather impact you?
Yes.
And what would you say the biggest impact your grandfather had on you?
Humility.
Wow.
He was a farmer.
Ah, my grandfather was a farmer too. That's awesome. That is, I didn't know that about Peter. That's really cool. Which then leads to internalization, which then leads to a change, like Tom was saying. Internalize, believe, behavior change, and that leads to an outcome. So that leads to an outcome that's changed, and then we do something, and when we do something, what happens? This is why I love leverage. This is why I love the backstage passes, because Peter went ahead and revealed when you do something, you fail. Like, what? So I'm going to go through all this awakening, the why, the insights, the purification, the radical change in thinking, the leverage, the change. I'm going to do something, and then it's going to fail. Yep, that's how life is. And then we get it. We're not that smart. Like, we get humility. Like, there's so much that we don't know, and then we start the whole process all over again. Thoughts, questions, insights, Peter or Tom on this?
No, I
great
agree.
looking model.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to keep going because I want to make sure we get, like, it gets better. Like this stuff, I'm telling you, I knew, like I could feel the energy. Like Tom, I don't know how many years ago it was, 11 years ago, you shared trust the integrity of the system. For 11 years, I've been trying to figure out the science behind that, and I could never figure out why people don't trust the integrity of the system. And the internalization model actually, I think realizes that. So there's 4 levels of internalization. There's important, more important, we think is the most important, and then deep core life vision. In the important, we say something is important. It's just talk. So we all know somebody like that. We're like that sometimes ourselves, where we say, oh, this is really important, but we're just talk. It's not that important. Then there's more important, which is do, where it's like we take action on what we say we're going to do, and that's really more important. What we think is most important is our sacrifices. Like when we sacrifice, when we give up something that we love doing, absolutely are passionate about doing, and we make sacrifices to do something that we don't enjoy doing. And then the most important thing that I think a lot of people, this is our life vision that people haven't discovered in life, which is, like, I've just been so grateful and thankful that I discovered this at 8. It's when we discover our life vision, what we'd give our life for. Like, I'd give my life for my 7 kids. I'd give my life for my 5 grandkids. But what else would I give my life for? Well, I'd give my life and have given my life for my life vision. If we haven't discovered something that we would literally give up, like it's more important than life itself. So it seems that we as human beings are all interconnected into one another. Every human being is created uniquely. Why? Is it possible that every human being has a unique purpose, a life vision, which we have individually been placed on this planet to fulfill? Now, we won't get into, spiritual belief systems and all of those type of things, but if we don't believe that we were created uniquely and special, and there's no other person like us on the planet of the 7.4 billion people, no one before us, no one after us, it's hard to internalize things because we're just one of many. And, we just kind of evolve. We just kind of here for no apparent reason. Things have if we have that belief system, well, then there's no internalization. Like we're not that important, like we're just here. And so internalization goes into the very core of how important we are in being able to, what are we willing to sacrifice? So Tom talks about the belief system and sacrifice. And so we're not willing to sacrifice anything. It's just talk. It's nothing. More important, we're willing to sacrifice a little and then a lot. And then our core vision is like everything. So in our lives, it seems that often to get to do what we love to do every day, that we have to make sacrifices daily in doing things that we do not enjoy doing to position our lives to do the things that we're passionate about doing each and every day. And I think for my kids, my 3 son-in-laws, my daughter-in-law, my 5 grandkids, I think that one of the things I want them to internalize is a lot of times in life you do things you don't like to do. And that's part of life. And that's when you're going to actually learn the most. It's not in when you're doing the things you love doing. It's in the things you don't love doing, but you do them out of discipline. Are we making the sacrifices we need to daily to achieve our life vision? Okay, so this is where it gets cool. Now watch carefully. Are you ready for something magical, almost mystical in the engineered clarity model? This, I think, is important for us to understand the magic of what's going on here. So do you see how things go from unclear to clear? Ask questions, listen, see, true intentions, think, capabilities, internalization, the do. Now, the weirdest thing happens to engineered clarity model to us when we learn to internalize things. So watch what happens. So you go from asking questions to listening to seeing. This is where it's almost impossible to do. Young children will do this, but as children grow up, like I remember when my kids and my grandkids now, they'll jump off a deck into my hands, risking their very life just to trust Grandpa. Their parents, some of the teenagers, they don't trust me so much. So watch what happens. It moves from going from the left to the right, and it shifts around, and it goes the opposite direction. So it's not going from left to right. Now it's moving from the right to the left. It's going from asking questions to listen to just do what I tell you to do, when I tell you to do it, how I tell you to do it, do it with a great attitude. Like that's impossible. We want to see, think, and do, or think, see, and do. We definitely do not want as human beings to do, think, and then see. And so it's really cool because it goes into where now we go from ask questions to listen, then we go to do, which then internalizes things, and then it goes to capabilities, and then it goes to where we start to think differently, and then it goes to purifying our intentions. Again, humility, what Peter's grandfather taught him. True intentions, you're not that smart, you're not that important. I mean, you are, but you're not. And then seeing something in a totally different way that then produces results. So believe it or not, the flow or the polarity of engineered clarity model actually reverses itself. Yep, it's weird. But our brains are actually no longer constricted, restricted, enslaved to think as we've always thought. We have an awakening moment daily, even hourly, very strange indeed, when we flip the engineered clarity model, and we go from, rather than the left to the right, we go from the right to the left, and we start to trust the integrity of the system. We have the trust of our parents. We have the trust of our grandparents. We have the trust of our bosses. We have the trust of peers. I have a trust of my kids that they're going to parent in a different way than I am. And you know what? I don't see it at the time, but I bet you it's going to be better. I'm hoping it's going to be better. Tom, Peter, thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think to what you're saying, as we get older, we accumulate baggage or habits which don't serve us. They make us, things more predictable. But it's not until you get outside of what you've accumulated over time, an adventure into the unknown, the unpredictable, that you start to learn and grow.
Nice.
I think it's important at the end of each day you kind of recognize what you did that was habitual. You know, the way you managed your day, was it the same as the day before, the day before, the day before that, in which case you're really not going anywhere. If you spend too much time just repeating the formula that you've repeated before, you know, in an organization, you start off with not so often a dream, but it goes dream, vision, strategy, plan, right? And the planning side, when it comes to monthly, quarterly, annually, that's predictable. That's all based on systems and processes that have been developed over time. Strategy is longer term, leading towards a vision. A vision is less predictable, and a dream is even less predictable. But it's that formula for growth and moving beyond the predictable results that you can get in the short term that you have to do individually and collectively.
Nice. So again, we're going to go into the Q&A, kind of a bonus session. If we'd encourage you. I know I have this course. I've been through a lot of courses.
Can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
You remember when I talked about the modified well-formed outcome?
Yep.
The 5.
Yep.
What you just described to me is that process. Start with the end in mind. What are the obstacles? What do I have to overcome to get over the obstacles? Am I willing, this is the belief process, am I willing to give these things up to get over the obstacles to get my outcome? And if I say yes to everything, then I just do it.
Right. Absolutely.
That's what this reminded me of.
Absolutely. It's wild. And so, again, if you're listening, share this with other people. Again, if it's appropriate, the person who gave it to you, give them a hug. Say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, hey, Grandpa, hey, Grandma. Or maybe your grandkids give it to you. Say, hey, I can learn a lot from you. So we all, it's a never-ending journey. If you have any questions, I'd register. I've gained so much from the course. And so you can go to leverage.dna4success.com, check out the course, get the backstage passes. It's amazing. Maybe consider giving this course as a present to a spouse or a child or a grandchild. Be the best course they've ever gone through, and really understanding deeply what do you want in life and how do you go about getting that in doing that. And so if you have any questions on anything we covered today, feel free to connect with the individual who invited you to participate, or you can call toll-free 888-230-2300. That's 888-230-2300. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.